All right, click the links to make a small donation on Coffee, Cash App, or Subscribe Star so I can get a phone that doesn't randomly shut itself off like this one does. This phone has seen better days. Or subscribe to the Odyssey, Bit Chute, or the Telegram channel. Okay, so what happened with BLM, where we are now, and who are the parties? Well, BLM started with George Floyd, but you're probably familiar with that. It was built a house of cards on sand right from the start. George Floyd was a scumbag. He's in a better place. He's in hell, where he deserves to be. The guy was committed home invasion. In my world, home invasion should get you the punishment that extinguishes you from this mortal coil, or carjackings, or a whole bunch of crime. There's a point when society has to look at this kind of stuff and go, oh yeah, these people can't be on the ground anymore. They need to be under the ground in some capacity. So that started the whole thing off, and it also pushed this narrative of BLM, Black Lives Matter, and you go, well, the whole thing about cops killing black people, no, cops and black people, black men have more interactions because they're committing, the black dudes are committing, the sun men are committing more malum and say acts, so they have more run-ins with the police. That's the harsh, brutal reality that's not politically correct to say on social media, but the longer people go without saying it, the worse things go along this path of you ignore the obvious solution. The obvious solution to BLM is not, oh, we're going to, what are you going to do with money, BLM? I don't know. They never said what they're going to do with the money. And that $10.6 billion, the punchline is, it's gone. They stole the money. They absolutely stole the money. The money is completely gone. But they never went into it with saying we're gonna have scholarships for low income students, or if we get a few $100 million, we'll use that for scholarships. If we get more than that, we'll build a little university somewhere, like a foundational black college somewhere, something like that, or trade schools, vocational schools in high schools, vocational programs, something to. It's like all that is cool. That's okay, but you can take that $10 billion and you could just burn it, and it would do the same thing. Because if you don't get fathers back in the home and you don't get the nuclear family back together, then none of those scholarship programs will make a difference. Because nothing makes a difference until you address the core problem, and the core problem is getting fathers back in the home. So what happened was Candace. Now here's the thing: you look at both these characters and you go, "Oh, yeah, they're." And to be fair, some people on Twitter, who I suspect are on the left, they look at this and they look at Patrisse Cullors and they go, "Yeah, she's a grifter. That money's stolen." It's an L for BLM to know that money got ripped off. Everyone who touched that money who was involved with BLM stole the money. It didn't go anywhere, but it went into homes. It went into offshore accounts. I'm willing to get the vast majority of that money just disappeared. In fact, all of it disappeared. So even people who were on the left who are asking questions about it, and the media coverage of the missing $10.5 billion is light. I was going to say surprisingly light, but the media coverage is not surprisingly light. It's light for a purpose. They don't want to investigate because it's a law. It's an L. It's a loss for the DNC. It's a loss for BLM, which has suffered so many L's that it's like BLM as an entity is just poison now. Even Amazon kicked them off as a charitable partner association because they weren't abiding by the generalized rules of accounting for charitable organizations. It means they didn't list. They didn't follow the rules to list people who'd be legally liable to create this, charitable trust situation, and have audits and accounting for the money coming in, because the money went into people's private residences. And you think wait a minute, this chick bought 4 homes in California. One of them, it was a $6 million home that was overvalued. It should have been a $3 million home. So they suspect that she paid $6 million for it, of BLM money. And then obviously that she probably got $1.5 million in kickbacks. And then the owner got an extra $1.5 million to sell the property. So it's so that money probably went in that money probably came out as cash and went in an offshore account somewhere. So there's the money has been ripped off left and right. So they bought this $6 million house in Southern California. It's it's an office space for BLM, but I don't know what it is. It's probably a 6-8 bedroom house somewhere in California, a nice enough place. But you get wait a minute, that's, if you spend $6 million on property for this charitable organization, you would buy or lease something outside of California because you're in BLM. You don't actually have to be in Southern California. You can be in like go up to Redding or Humboldt, and I think you could probably get, even if you want to buy like an office space, like a small office building, or even a residence that you want to convert into an office building somewhere where the zoning was allowed, you could do that outside of Southern California for less than $6 million. You could, like that same square footage of property, you could do somewhere in Northern California for, way Northern California, or somewhere in the desert somewhere for a lot less than that. So it's like, yeah, it looks like you just did the scam that I described, where you oversold the property and you took the kickback and you put an offshore account. It's what she probably did. And then she bought 4 homes for herself. So now, 20 years ago, if this happened, the media would be all over her and the FBI would be all over her, because it's pretty friggin' obvious. You have to look at like, well, what were you doing beforehand? Like, can we take a little audit of your sources of income? And here's the thing. She did an Instagram post. If she was honest, she's not. I mean, she gives like all the wrong warning signs. If she's honest, she'd be like, listen, I was a university professor for so many years. I was making $242,000 every year. These are my various investments over the years. And I got money coming in I work from this outside consulting firm. So I had, $4 million of my own money from outside consulting. Here's the people I work for. You can call them up. This is, I'm being open and honest. I had $4.2 million. I put that into property. This is a tracing of my funds. I'm above board. I'm clean and above board. That's a pretty wealthy person, but it's not crazy wealthy. So the BLM money with money in trust is this thing called like tracing and commingling. And the one thing you do with money in trust is you never commingle it. That means you have it in a separate account, and you follow rules in dealing with it, where anything you're paying out is going to get, you're going to have receipts for it. Everything has got to be itemized. Any expenses you have, you're in a fiduciary duty of care to the people who donated this money, and you never mix your own stuff in with it. That's commingling, and that's the biggest. It's a huge breach of your fiduciary duty. To run a charitable. And so what happened with these people who had access to these money is they just took out whatever they needed for administration expenses. And if you get like $20 million and you go, okay, so they bought some of these properties and they tried to bury it in like blind second party trusts, which fell apart under any kind of scrutiny, because it's really hard to do that kind of thing, because you're in the state of California, where it's just like, it's not set up to defraud, to do things legally and still try to defraud people, to set up like corporations and trusts under corporations. It's like, yeah, the state itself doesn't want you to defraud people, so it's very easy to trace these things back, which is what the media did. They traced back, like, so you're looking at this, like, you're like, well, why did you set up like a corporate form with like you tried to hide the board members, but you had to list yourself as a board member. Then you were a trust member under a board member. You tried to hide it. It's like you took 3 steps to hide it, which is ridiculous. Why'd you do that? I mean, you were administering this trust. You could have bought it just directly under the trust. Why'd you try to, what appears to be, hide the source of the money? It's like, because she's a crook. I'm assuming there's some, I don't want to sue for defamation, though I'm judgment proof, which means I don't have any money, but it looks very suspicious when you do something like that. And yet she did it. And then when she got caught, she gave this Instagram speech where she said a bunch of buzzwords. When Candace Owens went outside of her house, Candace Owens is 7 months pregnant. She is she is just a cutie. She's just as cute as a button. She's the cutest little thing. 7 months pregnant. She goes outside with her camera crew. She's got 2 guys in tow who are her camera crew. And she talks to this girl, Patricia, who lives in an all non-black neighborhood. It's a wealthy neighborhood. And she has a white security guard. Now, that kind of caught my attention. I was listening to Act Nation, because people were asking him, like, well, why does she have a white security guard? And he explains, he's honest, he goes, because if she had a Sunman security guard, her own security would set her up for a robbery. Like, it would happen eventually. She couldn't trust her own security. It's like, well, why aren't you living in a black neighborhood? Why are you living in a white neighborhood? Because if you live in a Sunman neighborhood, you get ripped off, because they know you got, $10 million. So you're probably going to have some pretty nice stuff. Or worst comes to worst, they just kidnap you until you cleaned out some accounts. So she lives in a white gated community with a white security guard because the white people are the only people she can trust, which sucks. All this stuff is an L for them, which is why the media is not covering it, because this is a left-wing L. And all these little things you think, oh, what does it have to do with like the 2022 elections? It's all tied in, and so the media ignores it. Like this is the BLM story is $10.6 billion ripoff. That's a huge ripoff. It should be like Enron level, right? But it's not, because like everything that George Floyd was built on is garbage. He was a bad guy, and most police interactions with Sunmen are valid because, one, we see body cam footage. It's not just that. We see cell phone footage, security footage. There's no shortage of footage showing police interactions with Sunmen. And yeah, some police are insane, and the district attorney should go after them. But the DAs are funded by Soros, who wants to foment as much discord as possible, which is why those woke DAs who you'd think would be against the police ignore police violence to get more and more sociopathic cops out there. They want all this stuff. It's not a game of chess. It's a game of checkers. It's not as complicated as chess, is what I'm trying to say. It's really not that complicated, but it is one step more complicated than just looking at it. You see, like, oh, woke district attorneys, I would think they would be all over the cops. You got to go one step below that to say, like, oh, no, these people are playing the longer game. They don't want to get rid of bad cops. You get rid of bad cops, you have a better relationship in the community between the Sun community. It's an algorithmic way for saying, black people. It's the Sun men. And the police, because if you got rid of those bad cops, you'd have better cops, you'd have a better relationship. Things would improve. The district attorneys are the puppets of Soros, and in a way, they're their own puppet masters. It's an ever increasing scale of puppets and puppet masters, with Soros, Rothschilds, and Schwab being the top puppets. They want chaos as much as possible. That's why they're light on the police. So the media will ignore this until after 2022 elections, or even 2020. And honestly, they're going to ignore it forever. It's an L for the left. It's an L for BLM. DNC, left wing, BLM, they're all tied up together where you can't. This is a massive $10.6 billion is missing. So the whole thing, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, so like the Sun community stole this money, but you're also trying to say like BLM lives matter. And you go on YouTube and you watch all this footage of, how they behave in police interactions. You're like, I see a lot of bad behavior. So, you're telling me this narrative is not adding up. So it's an L for the left, and so the way the media deals with it is they're just going to ignore it. They're not going to cover it at all. And you go, that's not the media I grew up remembering. If you're, over 40, yeah, those days are over. Like, the media is not the media anymore. They're openly not the media. They're something else. They're a branch of propaganda where this Candace Owens girl, and it'd be fair, like I said, you want to call her a grifter? Fine, in a way, maybe. But she's the only one who's covering the story, and she's doing it to for her own self-interest, to make make money off the videos, like Dinesh D'Souza is doing with that 2,000 Mules thing. But it's like they're the only ones who are covering this, and you look at the mainstream media, which is itself $1 billion industry, and you go, wait a minute, none of this is like, this is not a country, it's not a civilization that is going to be, you're kind of in the Weimar stages of, Germany in the 1930s, where you realize like, oh, this is the Lion Press, the Lugan Press type of thing. It's like the whole, if you're paying attention, this whole civilization is headed towards probably a civil war, this kind of stuff. It's like all this kind of stuff adds up where the media is ignoring $11 billion in theft because the media is controlled by these same Soros, Schwabs, Rothschilds, these left-wing people, where they're openly ignoring things. Where the justices, the abortion thing came out, so Antifa and BLM are protesting outside the judge's house, and they're desecrating churches and stuff. And so CNN comes on the news the other day, and they said, "Oh, they're very concerned about right-wing violence." And like literally, it's all left-wing Antifa, BLM who are attacking churches and rioting outside or protesting outside the justices' houses. That's all left-wing violence, left-wing issues. And CNN comes out and tells you to your face that they're concerned about right wing. Like, that's insane. Yeah, the media is not the media anymore. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, support your channel, coffee can. I'll see you guys all next episode.